if struck by a chill or a vision of ancient grace. And he gazed with a stare at my nut-brown hair till the blood rushed to his face. From Bantry Bay up to Derry Quay, and from Galway to Dublin town, no lad I've seen has a look so keen as I saw here in County Down. As he tripped o'er his feet, for a lad so bold, he was knocked from his hold by a girl that he chanced to meet. From Bantry Bay up to Derry Quay, and from Galway to Dublin town, no lad I've met hasn't a name to set against the star of the County Down. To find my humble cot. Well, let him come and let him drum his fingers on the door. If he's half the wit as he's got the grit, I might like him a wee bit more. From Bantry Bay up to Derry Quay, and from Galway to Dublin town, ne'er a lad I've sought has a heart so caught by the star. Snow on the heather, smoke from the roofs. I stand on the ridgeline, breathing the proof. Sky like a pale bowl, frost in my hair, name on my tongue tip, thin in the Wind takes the branches, braids them in song. Far in the darkness, something replies, echo or answer, tears in my eyes. Ooh, where are you now? I won't fall silent. Call across the pines, he's yellow. High, wild and wide. If you're lost, then follow the sound. Let it guide you through the night. Come home here. Come home. The fire smokes black when she walks through the door. A shadow that stretches across the stone floor. She carries the staff, she carries the sight, a piece of the morning in the heart of the night.
Satan, 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 Satan. The staff hits the wood where the kings used to stand. Fate is a needle in a trembling hand. You asked for the rune, you asked for the flame, but you're too weak to carry the weight of your name.
Allah, the thread is unweaving. Allah, the truth is bereaving. The vulva is spinning, the spirit and bone. The seeds of your ending have already been sown. She sees the high hall, she sees it in ash, the glint of the gold, the sting of the lash. She speaks to the dead, she drinks from the well. There are secrets the living are too frightened to tell. The thread is unweaving. The truth is bereaving. Vulva is spinning, the spirit and bone. The seeds of your ending have already been sown. Across the foam where the grey sea dies, I see the gold in your mortal eyes. Leave the iron sheen, leave the rust, leave the men who turn to dust.
I see the light, I see the shore, but my heart is tied to the threshing floor. How can I ride where the shadows go, when the wind of home is all I know?
Tiananong is calling,
Beyond the mist where the sea is new.
leave the world of the grey and the falling. Hashi, Harun, I am calling you. 10,000 winters in a single breath.
Good and fair evening, my friends. Welcome back to the tavern. I forgot before I was supposed to get on that I was supposed to fix this, and I was just finished fixing it. Oh. But hello, my friends. Hello, hello, hello. So very good to see you all. Let's get some regular background sounds going. I hope that everyone is doing well and that you're all ready for your weekend. Castle, I just had something funny happen. Is it Matty funny or is it actually funny? Which kind of funny are we talking about here? I'm back. Had to get a sweet treat. Sounds delicious. I made the lady banana bread yesterday, and I forgot that she doesn't like banana bread. I forgot she doesn't like bananas. She of course ate the pastry, but she doesn't like bananas. Gary Lovrain, I believe I've said that correctly. Lovrain. First time catching you live, well, welcome into the tavern, my friend. If you don't already know, I am Castle, this is my tavern, and here we talk about myth and lore and tales of yore. And every now and again I read you all a story. Tonight, that is what I am doing. We are reading. Tonight is our adult story time, so the book is a little bit more intense. It's nothing terribly explicit, but we are in Prince of the Blood by Raymond E. Feist. I startled Cryptid with her TTS, and I derailed her stream again. The raccoons are dying right now. Well, you're just messing with people's... What's going on? Well, excellent, Gary. We're glad to have you. Now, we're most of the way through, but I always give a recap before we get into it, so you should be able to keep up with the story. It's not a terribly complex story, so you should be able to keep up with us. And really, these story times are more for the camaraderie than they are anything else. Just ice cream. Gotta eat it in case we lose power. That's my reasoning behind it. That's right. 5 brain there. I'm not too late yet. No, I got started late today. I've been late just about every day for the past 2 months because of things going on here in the tavern. Mozart, thank you for the follow. I believe we had Bach or somebody follow yesterday. Well, this book's story is not overly complex. The series is complex. This book's story is not overly complex. This is the more simple of the stories we've read of Feist's. There's not like a multi-world conspiracy going on that we know of yet inside of this story. So, Sean Barry Krubelfeld. I try to be. Nobody knows. Hello. I love the specificity now. Oh. So, just as a, I wanted to share a bit of joy from my day. I don't engage in like internet drama anymore. I used to a lot, and it's very tempting for me to still do it because I do love a good rumble row. I do love a good one. But I put out a story time about the origin of what Americans and most English-speaking Europeans would call it Danish, or a Danish pastry, right? I love story time with you and your wife. Well, Adam, we're glad to have you, my friend. It's absolutely a pleasure and privilege. I've been reading old Warhammer. I've been having folk ask me to do Warhammer lore for a long time, and I haven't. The Danish video was not intended to be drama, though, Matty. It was just a joke. Like, I made a joke at the end of a Lego video where I said that I was just joking about how minimalist Danes are. Because Danish folk and Swedish folk are very minimalist. So are Icelanders. Like, most Scandinavian countries are very minimalist. Like, they'll be extravagant in some ways, but generally Scandinavians tend to live very minimally. And it's an interesting aspect of Scandinavian and Nordic culture. But I made the joke at the end of my Lego video, talking about how there is no pink Lego, which there are, but none of them are named pink. And at the end of it, I joked, you don't even want to get me started on their signature pastry. I was, of course, joking about the fact that most of the English-speaking and some of the Spanish-speaking world calls it a Danish, but pretty much everywhere else it's not called a Danish. And so a bunch of people were like, no, you gotta tell that story now. So I did tell that story, and it was very clearly a joke. I called 19th century Danish bakers Vikings, clearly being sarcastic. I talked about them weaponizing butter, clearly being sarcastic. The whole video was very clearly sarcastic. But like my uncle Agar, who is from Norway, says, the biggest problem with doing comedy in the North or in the Nordic countries is that if you perform for a room of 500 Nordics, you have to explain the joke 500 times. And it's just, and what's funny to me is that Nordic folk actually do have a very like dry and crass and straightforward sense of humor. And it's just, so in the video, I showed two different types of what is called wienerbrot, right? And there are a bunch of different pastries that are made with this kind of bread. And the bread is called wienerbrot because it comes from Vienna. It was made by Viennese bakers, and it's pretty much everywhere, right? It's the same kind of bread that is used in the croissant. It's the same kind of bread that's used in a lot of European pastries. It's even used actually in some Asian pastries. The Viennese style of like layering plated bread, it's gotten all over the place. The whole joke is that the Danish call it wienerbrot. In German food, shorthand for thin sausages is Wiener, because Wienerwurst, which is, it's just in German, and in Austria they primarily speak German. But in English, which primarily most of my audience is English, they speak English, they're from English-speaking countries. Especially in America, we have a restaurant out here, we have a fast food restaurant called Der Wiener Schnitzel. It's not called Der Wiener Schnitzel anymore, they changed that a while back, because der is not the proper preposition. It should be das. So they just removed it entirely. It's just called Wiener Schnitzel now. Wiener Schnitzel serves hot dogs. So in most Americans' minds, if you say Wiener, they think sausage or wiener, and both of those are colloquialisms for a penis. That was the whole joke. That was the whole joke. That was the entirety of the joke. It was adolescent. It was juvenile. But it was a schoolyard. It was a primary schoolyard gag, right? It was completely innocent, not pointing at anybody. A bunch of Scandinavians got very upset by this joke. Now, it wasn't the overwhelming majority of people thought the joke was funny. I even had a bunch of Scandinavians who thought it was funny. But there was... until they made it fun. And then Scandinavians decided to make it even funnier in the comments by getting very upset about it. And today I had my best comment yet in this whole thing. I've tried not to engage because I could be in there all day just teasing people. And I'm trying not to be mean. Alright? I do my best not to be mean. But I was... And in your impersonation about Light Red Ford, it was too sing-songy for Danish. Yeah, I'll be honest, my Scandinavian accents are not great. It was probably closer to Swedish, which is why I laughed, because I think I was closer to like Swedish or maybe even Finnish than I was Danish. Because Danish is probably a little closer to German than it is to like Swedish or Norwegian. Anyways, and that's the thing is, Adam, I used to be a mega troll all the time, but I prefer making content I prefer telling stories that is just fun. I prefer just talking about fun stories and enjoying this. I don't like drama anymore. But a lot of people have been baiting me into these things, and it's taken all of my self-control not to take the bait. But today I had somebody accuse me of bullying all of Denmark. A guy came into he said, this isn't funny, this is just bullying all of Denmark. And I was like, this is the funniest accusation I've gotten so far in this whole pastry debacle. I am now bullying an entire country. That's, for me, as a lifelong bully. Yeah, he was a Dane. No, and I used to like getting in discussions, like heated discussions on the internet, until I realized that nobody really wants to have their mind changed. Like, I used to really enjoy, like, having back and forth with people until everybody was mad at the end of it. Like, when I'm having conversations with people, even if I'm being sarcastic, even if I am being an entirely, how do you bully an entire country? That's what I said. Right, that's what I was like, this is some 10-ply stuff right here. This is about as 10-ply as you can get. There's absolutely no way. And again, the vast majority of people who watched that story, including Scandinavians, a lot of Scandinavians, thought it was funny. Thought it was a silly adolescent joke. Kayla, still alive, we're glad to hear it. Darth Nexus, my friend, welcome in. Butterbeer time indeed. Bullying Denmark, that's somehow, which is, yeah, like, a lot of people took that joke way more seriously than they needed to. But I found it very funny. It was even funnier by the few, because again, that video across everything probably got close to 1,500 or 2,000 comments. It was crazy. Like, there was a lot of people who responded to that story time. Because a lot of people didn't know because there are a lot of English speakers who didn't know where wienerbröd came from. Wienerbröd, right? So why is it called a Vienna loaf? Why is it called Wienerbröd? A lot of people didn't know. So that little reveal at the end of it, a lot of people enjoyed. A lot of people thought that it was very funny and that it was a fun way to tell the story. It was like 2% of people who left a lot of comments just getting upset about the joke. But I can't take it seriously when it's something so small. It's just funny to me. Darth Nexus, my friend, thank you for the heart, may the go popular, the TikToks and the roses. Tips to the tavern keeper, always appreciated. Yeah, but a lot of people are also lacking IQ. Not that I'm blaming anyone of being that. No, and Adam, I grew up among very crass old Irishmen and very crass old Nordic men, okay? I have incredibly thick skin. Alright, I live in America, I have a very strange accent. I grew up in some of the most hated counties in Ireland. I grew up between Wicklow and Limerick, which are two of the most hated counties. Well, there's like a small area outside of Cork that is also particularly hated because it's seen as being haughty. But thank you for the hard fingers, Darth Nexus, first time title gifter. What a legend. Yeah, don't sweat the small stuff. Not many people will care, but Canada won 6-0 against Qatar today, and that... Hey, well, congratulations. That's wonderful. Most people don't have thick skin, though. Right. Which is why I try to be very tame with how I do my joking around. Which is why I can take... Like, I've had some people say some god-awful shit to me in the comments of that Danish video. But I find it funny. It's the internet. These are just stories and strangers on the internet. It's not really that really that bad. You know, if you're gonna take things that strangers say so seriously, you're gonna be miserable your whole life. And again, I try to be relatively lighthearted in the way that I joke, and I joke about everybody equally. Probably more so, the people who are in my sites more so, I joke about the Irish and Americans because I live in America. I'm an American. I joke about the Americans all the time. I joke, I'll be honest actually. Probably the hardest target of all of my jokes are the French. The French gets the brunt of my sass. But other than that, it's the English, and it's the Irish, and it's the Scottish, and it's the Americans, though, and it's, you know, Scandinavians. I make fun of the Norse and whatnot. Yeah, I'm just not that way. I don't take anything really that seriously. Castle FIFA is a very unique sense of humor. The USA is facing the UK in Philadelphia on July the 4th. I want to know who's plotting X's against in each of the court got divorced. Oh, that's very funny, Matty. That is funny. When I was in Denmark, they loved making fun of foreigners, trying to say rod and grod and med and flot. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing, is I joked with a bunch, because when some of these Scandinavians started coming in, I thought they were joking. I thought a bunch of them were joking, I'll be honest. Because some people were being so serious. I thought it was that deadpan Scandinavian humor. I thought they were messing with me. But then more people came in and were actually upset, and I was blown away. I did not realize. I did not realize that the people were genuinely being upset. Well, yeah, the national flag of France is white. I don't have one here with me, but you could just take a piece of paper. That's the national flag. If the UK wins in the US, we're gonna have to dump them all in the Boston Harbor. That's just the rules, all right? I don't make the rules. That's just the rules. If the UK, especially if Britain wins anything here in the US, we have to toss them into Boston Harbor. And that's a much dirtier place than it was in the 1700s, I'm going to tell you right now. Incredibly pale, yes, Matty, that is true. Yeah, I mean, it's a time-honored American tradition, dumping British things into the Boston Harbor. So if they win the World Cup, you know, their World Cup match here, we have to dump them into the harbor. That's just... It's been steeping for a while now. I've been meaning to do a story time about that. Okay, we need to run ads over on Twitch and get started. I'm sorry, my friends. We got off on this whole ramble. We're gonna run ads on Twitch. You guys are gonna be in ad hell for about 3 minutes, and then we'll have a whole hour without them. I do apologize. It's necessary. Twitch makes us do it, but we will be right back. Hey, I'm Canadian. I support the Boston Tea Party. See, and that's the other thing. Is like I said, I love stories and culture from all over the world. I think every culture and every place in the world has wonderful stories, and I grew up respecting those stories. I grew up learning and keeping those stories. But I also think that every country in the world has ridiculous things about them, and that is undeniable. Milo, thank you for the resub. 19 months. Mead of the Morning Star, enjoy it. I thought you did it last stream too. It's weird that it didn't go through. That's odd, but enjoy your mead anyways. For real though, someone needs to ride through Boston screaming the redcoats are coming. That alone would probably make the year. I wish that would happen. That would be brilliant. If somebody is out in Philadelphia and is willing to ride through downtown Philadelphia on a horse, screaming the British are coming or the Redcoats are coming, as the UK's team gets there, I mean, you clearly can't do much better than that. That's top quality America right there. Look, I'll start a GoFundMe, and whatever that GoFundMe is raised to, I will pay the taxes on it myself and give it to whoever rides through. Because it's hilarious. It's very funny. I don't know how much we would possibly be able to raise for something so stupid, but I think that it's worthwhile. I think it's a worthwhile endeavor. I would totally do it if I lived in Philadelphia. Comedy gold it would be. Joker, hello my friend, good to see you, welcome in. We're talking about silly things. We're talking about international relations, as it were. The Norwegians showed up looking like Vikings to the World Cup, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody sent me a video about that. Somebody sent me a video saying that the Scandinavians, the Norwegians showed up in Viking uniforms to the World Cup, and I think that that's what happened. Somebody sent me a video, I don't know if it's true. But if they did that, for sure, we can have Americans showing up to the World Cup as Minutemen and have somebody dressed up as Paul Revere, you know? And the Scots in kilts going down the Boston Cop slide. Oh, come on. Fun fact, I'm staying in until after FIFA. I'm in a host city. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Yay, back from ads. It's so weird that you got stuck there. I'm doing good. Well, wonderful. Joker, you got more good plans for the weekend? You're going to do some more reading and get a nice drink in you? Well, yeah, no, I will 100% agree. I think it would be hilarious if we had the Americans dress up as Minutemen and somebody dressed up as Paul Revere doing the midnight ride in the middle of the day. It would be absolutely hilarious. Excellent, Joker. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, my friend. Could you imagine a Canadian riding through Philadelphia screaming, "The British are coming"? I absolutely could. The Scottish managed to nearly drink the bars dry, to my understanding. They pretty much do that wherever they go, so that's a fair notion. See, this is what I mean. Like, we can make these sorts of piss takes about everybody, and it's not a big deal. Oh, gosh, it's so weird to me when people get offended, especially when it's around things that are true, right? Like, Germans are notoriously humorless people. Like, they are such a practical people. And gosh, what was... Maybe I won't tell that joke on... Maybe I won't tell that joke on TikTok. I don't know if that joke will get me in trouble on TikTok. But somebody had made a joke about this whole Danish thing in the comments, and I responded to it. But we're not gonna go into it. I'll do it if someone will fly me down. I'll dress up and everything. Why is the rum gone? Why is the rum always gone? It's because the Scots were there. Having Scottish heritage, I've drank a bar or two dry of some of my favourite drinks. The Greeks were the best. The Turks, I mean, we took you over the Greeks and proceeded to have your ass handed to you. See, the Greeks have gone back and forth. The Greeks have been in a table tennis game of who's the best for a long time, and now the country's bankrupt. So they're now on the losing side of that war, but hopefully they can have a comeback. Alright, friends, I think we should get into story time. I have rambled enough. I just wanted to share with you all that I am now the official bully of Denmark. I've officially bullied the entire country of Denmark, and I've never been more proud. My mother would smile upon me to know the great things that I've achieved since she's passed. Oh, Lord. I'm glad that you guys are all of good humor in here. I could not stand having to have a community that is easily offended or easily taken aback by silliness. I can see that happening. Everybody in Boston screaming at the burner coming. Yeah. Official bully of Denmark. Yes, I am. Yep, that's true. Still the sunniest in the world, though, unless the Turks steal the sun. They might try. You never know with the Turks, though. Congrats if your mother is anything like mine. She would be proud. She most definitely would have been proud. My mom, if my mother were still alive, she would have been in. She would have been in those comments, absolutely going at people with me. She would have egged me on, which is a problem. Me easily offended by you, Castle. If I'm ever offended by you, I'm probably an award. Well, and the big thing is like I would never tell a joke in with the intent of being mean. Now, sometimes my jokes come off crass, and I will admit that. Like the lady says notoriously that my deadpan is far too good for some people. Like some people can't tell that I'm joking. But if I say anything that is remotely mean, the chances are I'm joking. And most of the mean things I say are self-deprecating anyway. How are things in the tavern? Wonderful, Petra. I bullied the entire nation of Denmark. It was very funny. If you can't laugh at yourself, then you can't laugh at anything. I 100% agree. It's like, again, I get tons of people to comment, especially Europeans, who will just be rude and vitriolic about my voice, right? I'll get tons of them. I'll get tons of people coming in and make fun of the way that I talk. And I could be offended and mad and sad, but no, I joke about it. Because what does it matter to me that some stranger doesn't like the way I talk? It's just, I don't understand the mindset behind getting upset at what strangers say. Yeah, especially since I talk to so many people. Can you imagine if I went out into the world caring so much about what people thought of me that I'm constantly worried about everyone's opinion of me? Now, I do care about people's opinions. It'd be dumb of me to say that I don't. My job is a public opinion job. I tell stories. Whether or not you guys enjoy the stories is very important to me. But your personal opinions of me on the back end, it don't particularly matter. Because most folk don't really know me that well. And those of you who are regulars, if you came in and you were like, hey, you went a bit far there, I'd be like, okay, understand. Reasonable to say, but was it funny? And if you go, no, it wasn't funny, it really, then I would, all right, I'll dial back next time. A person that only speaks one language has no place talking about a person's accent, second language. I agree. Well, and the funny thing is that the joke that I told was a language joke, and Europeans constantly crap on Americans for not understanding a joke. No, for not understanding multiple languages. But more Americans understood the joke, because it was aimed at English speakers, but more Americans understood the joke than anybody else. It can be funny and just toe over the line, which is where most of my jokes land, if I'm honest. When it comes to strangers, Dilly Gaff comes to my mind. Absolutely, Bear. I didn't even see you drop in, Bear, but hello. Castle, what would it take for me to request a video on Poutine next and have you bully Quebec next? You know, it takes you... I'll pay you to bully Canada, Matty. I love to bully Canada. Canada is like discount French, so I get to bully discount French. So that's... I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I will bully the French for free at any time. We have the same haircut, do we? This is traditional in my family for anyone who has lost their parents. So I have to keep my hair like this until I die, because that is the tradition that our family keeps. Canada is a loft apartment above a great party. Oh my god, yes, do what Matty said so I can use it to tease Ken. I will do discount France and America's silly little hat. Yeah, absolutely. The apartment above the bar. That's a good one. That one I haven't heard before. See, and I love our Canadian friends. Now, I'll say this as a blanket. I don't care for most governments and government officials and celebrities in the world. I think most celebrities, most government officials are bastards, and I don't care for any of them. say that outright. But I love the people of almost I love the people of almost every country. Are there bastards in every country? Sure. Jessica, hello. Things are good. We're waffling about in the internationality of the tavern. It's very fun. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate you, my friend. My parents have been gone for a while. I still miss them every day. My mother was one of the hugest supporters of the tavern and everything that I do, and I did and do love her dearly. But they passed back in 2018, 6 months apart. It was definitely a rough time. It took me a long time to get back on my feet after that. I had a very rough 4 years. It's 2018, I lost my parents, then I lost my company, then I lost my house, then I lost my car, and then I lost the rest of my business during the pandemic. And then up to 2022, I basically lost everything. And it's only been because of the love and help of the lady that I've been able to recover as well as I have and be able to do what I do here with all of you in the tavern. It's been wonderful. Well, we'll raise a glass to your mom then, as well as to my mom and to all the other folks, because we've just had a couple of folk lose parents. So, to all the parents who have passed, both recently and long ago, we celebrate them forever. Offended over here. Yeah, it's been happening quite a bit. I've gotten, I go on the idea. See, that's really what I mean, Matty, is that one of the reasons I don't talk about politics is because politics. Radioactive PH Meepa, hello, welcome in. So glad you could join us. And you must be from Matty's group since he recognized you. It's way too difficult to talk about politics and everybody keep a level head. I will talk about old politics, like politics of the past. But I don't particularly care for talking about politics. We also had about 20 pubs within a 15-minute walk. Oh, I see. I missed the earlier part of that conversation. You're talking about the pizza restaurant. T-Dubs, hello and welcome in. Grab a seat, settle in. We're about to start story time. But yeah, I don't talk about current events. I don't even really consume social media anymore. Because there's nothing positive on it. I get nothing but negative things out of the news and social media. I keep up with what's going on through like formal announcements and through a couple of individuals who I know personally, who do like international news things, and then my family in Ireland keeps us up to date with what's going on in Europe at the time. So I don't even think about it. And because my job is not to talk to you guys about these things, and it's not to tell you all what to think. My job is to pass on stories, respect those stories as I pass them along, to give you guys some levity, to give you some place to escape and some place for camaraderie where everyone respects everyone. And I don't mean respects as in everybody is owed respect. I mean, when you're here, you're not here to bicker about your differences. You're not here to be in some tribal battle with each other over whatever bullcrap's going on out in the world. When you're here for a story. And when you're here, you come here for a story. And that's the only thing that the tavern is for stories. We might talk about timeless truths, and some of them may echo with what's going on right now. I don't do any of that intentionally. If I tell a story and it's echoing anything that's going on right now, it's either because I'm answering a question that was asked of me by somebody, because that's where half the stories come from. Half the stories I tell are people asking me questions, and then I answer them with a story time. The other half are just the lady and I sit down and we say, okay, here's a bunch of stories that would be relevant to this time of year. What should we tell? And then we pick and we tell them. That's how we pick stories. I had somebody get really mad at me about this deer video that I did. I had somebody message me and they said, hey, I heard somebody say that if you notch a deer's horn, the horn will remember where it was notched and it'll grow a spike in there with the next set of horns. Can you tell me whether or not that's true and what the science is behind it? And so I did a story time on it because somebody messaged me and asked me about the phenomenon. And I had somebody get mad. They're like, "Oh, I've seen two other people repost this, and it's incorrect." And I was like, "Well, this is where I get my information from. If you have something more updated, please tell me. But as far as I'm aware, this is what it is." And I would have no way of knowing if somebody else was talking about this because I don't consume social media. All of the stories the lady and I come up with are either because you guys request them, or because we came up with them because we thought it would be interesting. That's it. That's where all the stories come from. So I don't keep up with what's going on in the world anymore unless it's super important. I have a guy who is a friend of mine who does news here in the United States. He sends me an email with like the updates of all the important things that are going on, and I trust that he's going to be unbiased. He's going to tell me what the facts are. And then when there's anything important going on in Europe, we get an email from my aunt and she updates us on anything that's going on there. So, sorry, I got on a real ramble there. We should start story time. I apologize, my friends. I need to write up my Ember story before the deadline tonight. Look, good night, Meeper. It was wonderful to meet you. I'm glad that you could drop in. Heck of a pub crawl, bear. Canada keeps censoring news. There are a lot of countries that do that. But I can't even really be. I am upset about it, but I can't really be upset about it because there are a bunch of countries that are doing it. It's kind of become the norm, which is sad and scary, but that's sort of the normal thing. Word of mouth, basically. Yeah, more or less, Adam. I told my mom after everything that happened is trust and respect are not given. They're expected first but can be lost and are hard to regain. Well, with everything you should do, the reality is you should always trust but verify. Chemical Kid, thank you for the follow over on the TikTok portal. Welcome to the tavern, my friend. Social media is nice to use for connections, but beyond that, it's a way too much brain input in my... I agree, Jessica. It's like we've struggled for a long time to fit into the algorithms with the tavern because the algorithms prioritize very fast, very quick, very snappy things, and then that's what everything is. But everything that we do is slow. We do slow brain things. We do stop and think about it sort of things. And the algorithms don't like that. So it's taken us a very long time to get to a point where we can even remotely do this as work because it's very hard to get any kind of views in the algorithm doing things the way that we do. Because everything is fast, everything is snappy, everything is a trend, everything is aggressive, everything is emotionally resonant. Like everything is trying to keep your brain running at a mile a minute. And that's not what we do. What we do is we try to slow things down and tell stories in the old traditional way. And I'm not going to change that. I mean, even if the algorithm shut us down and decide, nope, you're going to get 20 views per video, I'll go and do other work in addition to this, and we may not put out as many story times, but I'm still going to do this because I think that it's needed and necessary. And if it's ever not, then perhaps it's not time for the tavern. Maybe that's just what it is. Okay, I'm sorry, I got a hit. Do you know the history and myths of Macbeth? I'm familiar with Macbeth. When I was in university, classical literature and antiquities were a part of the whole, were a part of my studies. I haven't thought about Macbeth in forever, but if you have a question about Macbeth you'd like me to do a video on, I have a crap ton of books on Shakespeare and Macbeth. Oh, hi there, good evening to ye, mate. How be ye this lovely Thursday? Wait, hang on, I gotta read that hashtag. Oh, hi there, good evening to ye, mate. How be ye this lovely Thursday? I'm fine. How are you doing? Captain Kraken OG. How goes the writing and over? We are reading, and we haven't started yet, because we're waffling. But we are reading Prince of the Blood by Raymond E. Feist. Tonight's our adult story time. Tim, I tried to answer you last night, I got distracted. So, the Katerina Sforza video got pushed to summer because it didn't fit in with our programming. It's still going to come out, I promise you. I've not abandoned it. I love that video. I really want that video to come out, because Katarina Sforza is one of my favorite historical figures, period, but she's also one of the most badass women in all of history. So it will come out. We've had a whole lot of content delays because of a bunch of different things, but I prefer your long videos with tons of explanation over short, quick meme-like videos. I agree, and I don't mind like a joke every now and again, but I prefer it to be a little bit more complex. Like even my Danish joke had like some language and some real history in it. The history I told about where the name came from, by the Viennese baker, that was all real. That was all the real history of it. So, well, in here we only have one ranking captain, and that is Capitan Hootie. So, you'll have to pry the ship out of my cold, unalive, cold, dead hands. We'll just say dead hands. It's fine. I am the captain. How far are we in that book? We're almost to the end, actually. We are coming up on the end here. We've only got maybe 2 or 3 more nights left. We're actually going to need to vote on a new book soon. I'm going to have the lady put out another poll for what book we're going to do next. I be the captain of the Kraken's ballad, the ship where the dreams can come true in the face of the greatest odds. Oh, what a wonderful thing that is. More waffling further encourages the demand for waffle shirts, just say. That's fair enough. Look, I am the captain of the ship on most things, but when it comes to what comes out, as far as merchandise goes, that's the ladies' domain. Yeah, she do light things on fire and swing swords with gusto. That's true. It is. I'm considering to make a video of Winnie the Pooh meeting the Red Tsar. Why? Because Captain Jack met King George II, and George is the overarching antagonist of POTC, right? Right? I mean, fair enough. Captain Kraken, give it a follow. You've marked the tavern on your map. You should be able to find your way back the next time you seek a story. For all the new folk, I am Castle, this is my tavern, and here we talk about myth and lore and tales of yore, and every now and again, I read you all a bedtime story, which is what we're doing tonight. Kind of. Sometimes. We're working on getting there. Sometimes I accidentally on purpose. That's true. Okay, so when we last left off, so for everyone who is new, the lady would make an excellent. I believe that she would. Yes, I do think so, Jessica. Who mentioned my favorite thing? That would be Captain Hoodie, Destiny. She's called the Scourge Queen because she's accidentally cleared the chat on Twitch a couple of times, and it was very funny both times that it happened. Now, everything that's happened up to this point, the story focuses on 2 brothers who are the twin sons of the Prince of the Realm. So the Prince of the Realms is the brother of the King of the Realms. The King of the Realms hasn't had any heirs. So one of the 2 sons of the Prince of the Realms is going to have to become king. Now, they got sent off on an envoy to take care of an international diplomacy thing with a neighboring nation who is much bigger, but not as well togethered as the Kingdom of the Isles. They are called Erlond and Boric. Those are the names of the twins. Early on in the story, Erlond was kidnapped and is believed dead by his brother Boric. No, I'm sorry. Boric was kidnapped and believed dead by his brother Erlon. Erlon is in the city of Kesh, the nation of Kesh, and is entertaining the Empress of Kesh, which is what both of them were supposed to be going to do. Boric was caught by slavers and has been running away from slavers ever since then, got himself locked up, and is now running away. And he's trying to get to Great Kesh in order to let his brother know that he's alive. When we last left off, Boric had been locked up, and him, a monk, his mercenary buddy, and a little kid who was a beggar who helped him to escape from the slave pens, all escaped from prison and are now running away from the Keshian military. And that is where we are right now. Alex Rossett, hello, welcome in. I shall accept. I offer cornbread, chocolate chip cookies, and hot cocoa in return. Black Dragon, hello, good evening to you. Welcome in. So very glad that you could join us. Grab a seat, settle it. We're literally just starting. I know we're an hour in already, but we're just starting. Yeah, and yeah, Erlon is entertaining pretty much every lady in Kesh, which is, probably not the best thing in the world, but I don't recommend that, gentlemen. Find yourself a good one and settle down. Don't be mansloots if you can avoid it. All right. I'm only here for a few minutes, but wanted to say hi. Well, that's absolutely fine. I'm glad that you could drop in. It's always lovely to see you. We're on chapter 14 of Prince of the Blood by Raymond E. Feist, and this is so far my least favorite of the Feist books that we've read, but I do like Borik's story. Borik's story has been very interesting. All right, let us... And also, the Emerald Lady bought a round for everybody, so if you'll raise your glass for the Emerald Lady, sláinte, my friends. All right, good night, Destiny Love. I appreciate you. Rest well and tell the boys we said hello. All right, let us continue. Chapter 14 of Prince of the Blood. Bargain. Borik rubbed his jaw. I wish people would stop hitting me to make a point, he grumbled. Gouda stood over him and said, That's for costing me my pay. I can't go looking for Saber now with half the Imperial Army looking for me. And even if I found him, I doubt he'd pay me what he owes me. And it's your fault, madman. Borik could only agree, though sitting on damp straw in the abandoned barn in the middle of a nation of people seemingly bent on killing him at every opportunity, he felt he deserved at least a little sympathy. Look, Gouda, I'll make it up to you. The mercenary turned to remove a saddle from one of the horses they stole, and over his shoulder he said, Oh, really? And how, pray tell, do you plan on doing that? Are you going to send a polite note to the office of Abbar Bukar, Lord of the Army, saying, Please, kind lord, let my friend off with a stern talking to. He didn't know I had the kill-on-sight order on my head when he met me, right? Borik stood, wiggling his jaw to make sure it wasn't broken. It hurt and popped in and out of the socket on one side, but he was fairly certain it was intact. He glanced around the old barn, and the farmhouse that stood nearby was burned out, either by bandits or guardsmen for whatever reason the Empire judged sufficient, but in either case it gave Borik's little band a chance to rest up the horses. Like most good cavalry provided, there was grain in the saddlebags, so Borik set about giving a handful to his horse. Suli sat tenderly upon a half-rotten pile of straw, a study in misery. Nakor had already unsaddled his horse and was wiping it down with the cleanest handful of straw he could find. He was absently humming a nameless tune as he went about his work, and his grin had not vanished even for an instant. Gouda said, When the horse is rested, madman, you and I are quits. I mean to get myself back to Farafra. Somehow and take the ship down to Lesser Kesh. Things are a little less imperial down there, if you catch my meaning. Just maybe I'll live through this. Borik said, Gouda, wait. The large mercenary dumped the saddle on the ground and said, What? Boric motioned him away from the others and quietly said, "Please, I'm sorry I've gotten you into all this, but I need you." "You need me, madman? For what? So you'll not die alone?" "Thanks, but I'd rather die in the arms of a whore than a whore many years from now." "No, I mean, I can't get to Kesh without you." Gouda glanced heavenward. "Why me? Why me?" Boric said, "Look at the boy. He's terrified and so sore he can't think. He might know the back alleys of Durban, but he knows nothing else. And the Islani, well, he's not exactly what I call reliable." Boric put his finger on his head and made a circular motion. Gouda glanced at the sorry-looking pair and was forced to agree. "So, that's your lookout. Why should I care?" Boric thought and couldn't come up with a single reason. Circumstances had thrown them together, but there was no real friendship. The older mercenary was likable in his own fashion, but not what Boric would call a comrade. "Look, I really will make it worth your while." "How?" "Get me to Kesh and see me to my people. I must reach and see me to the people I must reach to clear this mess up. And I'll pay you more gold than you'll see in a lifetime of caravan duty." Gouda's eyes narrowed as he considered Boric's word. "You're not just saying this?" Boric shook his head. "I'll give you my word." "Where are you going to get your hands on that kind of gold?" asked Gouda. Boric considered telling him the entire story, but couldn't bring himself to trust Gouda that much. A nameless man blamed for a crime he didn't commit was one thing. A prince being hunted was another. Even though Boric knew anyone who guessed his identity was as good as dead should the gods find him in Boric's company. Gouda might have been tempted enough by the thoughts of reward to push his luck. Boric's experience with mercenaries in the past didn't argue for their sense of personal loyalty. Finally, Boric said, "I was accused of the murder of the wife of the governor of Durban for political reasons." Gouda didn't blink an eye at that, so Boric felt that he was on the right track. Political murders in Kesh didn't seem improbable. "There are people in Kesh who can clear me of that, and more, and they have resources, substantial resources, and can provide you with," he quickly calculated a sufficiently impressive figure by kingdom standards into Keshian currency, 2,000 gold IQ. Gouda's eyes widened a second, and then he shook his head. "That sounds good, madman. That's all what a horse promises." Boric said, "All right, 3,000. Looking to call Boric's bluff, he said, 5,000. "Done," replied the prince. He spit in his hand and held it out. Gouda looked at the outstretched hand, offered to the old trader's fashion, and he knew he was obliged to either take it or be known as an oath-breaker. Reluctantly, he spit in his own hand and shook. "Damn your eyes, madman, if this is a lie. I'll have your guts on my sword. I swear. If I'm to die for stupidity, at least I'll have the pleasure of seeing you dead the instant before I meet the goddess of death." Boric said, "If we make it, you'll die a rich man, Gouda Bule." Gouda threw himself down upon the damp straw to rest, as well as he could. "I would have preferred if you'd chosen to put that a different way, madman." Boric left the mercenary muttering to himself and sat down next to Suli. "Are you going to make it?" he asked. The boy said, "Yes. It only hurt a little. But this beast has a back like a sword blade. I am split in two." Boric laughed. "It's hard at first, but we'll try a little instruction. Here, in the barn, before we leave tonight." Gouda said, "Not that it'll do much good, madman. We're going to have to leave those saddles. The boy's going to have to ride bareback." Nako nodded his head vigorously. Yes, that is true. If we are to sell these horses, we must not have anyone suspect their imperial property. Sell them? Asked Gouda. Why? With the Jubilee, replied Nakor, it is easier for us to reach the city by river travel up the Sarn on a boat for hire. We will be but 4 among multitudes, but to travel so requires payment, so we must have funds. Boric considered the little money he had remaining after buying his clothes and armor in Farafara, and knew Nakor was right. They didn't have enough funds among them to buy a first-class meal for one decent inn. And who would buy them? Asked Gouda. They are branded. True, said the Islani. But that can be dealt with. The saddles, alas, cannot be altered without damaging to the point of worthlessness. Gouda levered himself up with one arm. How can you change that brand? Do you have a running iron in your rucksack? Better, said the little man, reaching into his sack and pulling out a small stoppered jar. Rummaging around in the sack, he came up with a little brush. Observe! He pulled the cork from the jar and dipped the little brush into the solution. A running iron leaves a crude, easily detected alteration of the brand. This, however, is for an artist. He approached the nearest horse. The army brands, all livestock with the Imperial Army glyph. Dabbing at the little brush, he began applying the fluid to the horse's flank. A faint sizzle sound could be heard, and the hair where he touched the brush began to blacken, as if being touched by flame. Hold the horse, please, he said to Boric. This does not harm them, but the heat can alarm the animal. Boric went and grabbed the animal's bridle, holding it while the animal's ears were turned this way and that, as it tried to decide whether or not to get upset with the proceedings. After a moment, Nakor said, There, it is now the glyph of Yong Sut, horse trader of Xinglai. Boric came round and looked. The brand had changed, and Nakor was right. It looked as if the brand had been made with a single iron. Will anyone in Kesh know this Yong Sut? Unlikely, my friend, as he does not exist. However, there are perhaps 1,000 horse traders in Xinglai. So, who can claim to know them all? Gouda said, Then, when you're done with that, we're ready to leave. Wake me, will you? So saying, he laid back down on the damp straw and tried to make himself comfortable. Boric looked at Nakor and said, When we reach the river, it would probably be better if you left us. I don't think so, he said with a grin. I intend to travel to Kesh in any event, as the occasion of the Jubilee will make it easy to earn money. There will be many games of chance and many opportunities for my small magics to serve me. Besides, if we move together with Gouda and the boy traveling a few hours behind or ahead, we will not be those the guards are seeking. Perhaps, said Boric, but they have a pretty good description of the three of us by now. But not me, grinned the Islani. No guard caught sight of me when they stopped the wagon. Boric thought back and remembered that somehow, when the Imperial Guards were looking over everyone, Nakor had been absent. Yes, now that you mention it. How did you do that? It is a secret, he said with an affable grin. But it is no matter. What does matter is that we must do something about your appearance. He cast a knowing eye upon Boric's uncovered head. Your dark hair grows suspiciously red at the roots, so we must devise for you another look, my friend. Boric shook his head. Another surprise from that bag of yours. Bending over the bag, Nakor's grin widened more than usual. Of course, my friend. Borik awoke to Suli's pushing his shoulders emphatically. He came instantly awake and could see it was growing dark outside. Gura was alert by the door with his sword drawn, so Borik was at his side with his own weapon, at the ready for an instant later. What is it? Hissed Borik. Gura held up his hand for silence. Listening. Horseman. He whispered. He waited, then put up his sword. They ride west. As far as far enough back from the road, and they're likely to miss it. But once we meet up with a bunch we left on foot, back in Gilosh, they'll be all over this place like flies on dung. We better get moving. Borik had decided which of the 4 horses was likely to be the most agreeable for Suli and gave the boy a boost up. Giving him the reins, he said, Hold on to her mane with your left hand, and if we have to go anywhere in a hurry, just keep your legs as long as you can. It's balance, not gripping with your knees, understand? The boy nodded, but it was clear from his expression the idea of going anywhere on a horse in a hurry was a notion only slightly less terrifying than running into more guards. Borik turned and found Nakor carrying the saddles out of the barn. Where are you taking them? The grinning Islani said, There is an old compost pile in the back. They'll not look under it, I'm thinking. Borik had to laugh. In a minute, the chronically happy little man was back in the barn, nimbly leaping onto the back of his horse, despite his ever-present rucksack and staff. Borik caught the aroma of decomposing compost and said, If you're an example of that pile, you're right. They'll not go poking around in there anytime soon. Gouda said, Come on, let's get as far up the road as possible by dawn. Borik motioned and the mercenary pushed open the barn door and they jumped on the horse's back. He kicked it firmly and set off at a trot, with Borik, Suli and Nakor coming behind. Borik put aside a terrible feeling that every turn in the road hid another ambush and focused on one fact. Every passing minute brought him that much closer to Kesh and to Erlond and the others. The town of Pahes was busy, as it squatted upon the bridge across the River Son, with a road beginning at Farafara and ending at Katara, in the northeast joined. Just east of the bridge, on the south bank, a huge warehouse and riverfront district had grown over the years, as teamsters pulled heavy wagons up close to barges and riverboats which carried goods into the heart of the empire. A few shallow draft sailing boats could be seen, as prevailing winds were from the west, so that it was possible to sail upriver most times of the year, save for when there was flooding, from Kesh to Jamila and other towns that dotted the shore. And shipping upon the vast lake, the Auvergne Deep, was as plentiful upon any sea of mid-Kemia. Borik glanced around, still feeling foolish in his present costume. He was wearing a daha, a traditional costume of a Benderif, hill people of the Rain-Shadow Mountains. The garment consisted of a colourful, dyed piece of cloth around his waist, then drawn over the shoulders like a toga. His sword arm was bare, as were his legs. Instead of boots, he wore a cross-garter sandals. Borik felt both ridiculous and vulnerable without armor, but it was a good choice as far as the Bendrifi being one of the few fair-skinned races native to Kesh. Borik's hair had been cut close to his scalp and dyed with a foul-smelling concoction that Nakor had obtained the night before, and now he was a startlingly near white blonde color. The hair was standing straight up and held in place by a sweet-smelling pomade, while the shave over the ears and the Bendrifi were also a standoffish, aloof tribe. so it was unlikely anyone would wonder at his reticent manner. Boric prayed he never ran into one this far from home, for their language was also unrelated to that of the other peoples of Kesh, and Boric couldn't speak a single word. Though while Boric had been undergoing the transformation, Sully revealed that he could curse a little in Gindrefi, their language, so Boric had the boy teach him a few phrases. Hannah, hello and good evening. We're doing quite well. The boy is in his room. Does this guy have a bag of holding? It seems like he does. Tyson, my friend, thank you for 18 months subscribed to the tavern. Tips to the tavern keeper, always appreciated, my friend. Thank you very much. John, hello. Awesome to be back here again. It's wonderful to have you. Hate to say this, but gotta run. Family BS, that's all right. Adam, go take care of what you gotta take care of. It's wonderful to have you for the time we did. I hope that you have a good rest of your evening. Hope the family drama sorts itself out, and that you rest well this evening and you find yourself ready to face the morrow, well rested and ready to conquer all things that stand before you. Gotta see, how much longer do we have in this chapter? I think we have ads coming up over on Twitch. So, we've got quite a few pages to go. Yeah, we've still got 13 pages left, so we're probably not going to make it. And we got 15 more minutes, we're good. Got a little bit of time. Still here, just home, we've been having a chat. No, it's alright. Take and do what you need to, Milu. Alright, where were we? When Nakor had found this outlandish costume, Boric had no idea. But like anything else the Islani tried, it usually meant the astonishing results. The little man had gotten at least double what Boric thought the horses were worth and had managed to find the prince a new rapier in this modest town, when Boric had failed to obtain one in Kesh's largest city. Against any reasonable expectation, Nakor had produced exactly what Boric needed to change his appearance to a startling degree. Sully was now garbed as a boy of the Beni Sharin, a large tribe of desert men in Yalpur, with a sword at his side. He wore a robe and a head covering, with only his eyes visible. If he remembered to walk erect, it could pass for a short adult. The boy had resisted giving up his old familiar rags until Gura threatened to cut him out of them with his sword. Given Gura's lack of patience since their arrest, Boric wasn't sure if he was only jesting. What's up, buddy? Hang on a second, guys. Oh, Dad just got home. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful to hear. Oh, I didn't realize. Oh, it was. Oh, that's. Okay, well, we're going to move that out of the frame. There we go. It was. He says hello. I did mute. The boy came out and had a question. Let's see. Given Gura's lack of patience since the arrest, Boric wasn't sure if he was only jesting. Gura had sold his armor and purchased a final rig, almost new leather harness and a matching pair of bracers. His old dented helm was gone, replaced by a similar one that was worn by the dog soldiers. A metal pot with a pointed spike in the crown, rimmed in black fur with a chain neck guard to the shoulders. It could be hooked across the face, revealing only the eyes, and this is how Gura wore it for the moment. Nakor had somehow managed to lose his faded yellow robe, and now wore what was the almost disreputable, but of a blotchy peach color. And he didn't look one whit less ridiculous to Boric. But the Islani felt this was a sufficient change in costume, given his resourcefulness. Boric was unwilling to argue. Nakor had secured passage for them on a barge heading downriver to the city of Kesh. They would be four among 100 passengers. As Boric expected, there were guards everywhere. They attempted to look unobtrusive, but there were too many, spending too much time peering into every passing face, for them not to be there for a purpose. Turning a corner, Boric and Suli walked a few yards ahead of Nakor and Gouda, toward a tavern only a few yards from the dockside. The boat would be leaving in 2 hours' time, and they would act the part of travelers forced to idle their time away in the company of strangers. They passed an open door, and Suli faltered a step. Hissing to Boric, he said, "Master, I recognize that voice." Boric shoved the boy into the next doorway and motioned to Gura and Nakor to continue past as they approached. "What do you mean?" Boric asked. Suli pointed back to the next door. "I heard only a few words, but I know the voice." "Who was it?" "I don't know. Let me return, and perhaps I can remember." The boy turned back and walked past the door, halting a moment on the other side, then turned the corner and looked down as if expecting to see something. Then he made a display of waiting for a moment, turned, shrugged to Boric, and then walked back. As soon as he was past the door, he hurried to Boric and said, "That was the one I heard. In the governor's house of Durban. That night, I overheard the plot to kill you." Boric hesitated. If they passed by again and glanced in the doorway, they would call unwanted attention to themselves. But he wanted to know who this bloodhound was on his trail. "Wait here," said Boric, "and see who comes out. Then make for the inn and tell us." Boric left the boy and hurried to where his companions waited, already drinking ale. He paused at their table for a moment, saying, "Someone who knows me may be in town." Then he turned and sat at the table next to them. A short time later, Suli came and sat next to Boric. "It was the man in the black cloak. He still wears it, master. And it was his voice," whispered the boy. "Did you get a good look at him?" The boy said, "Enough that I might know him again." "Go on," whispered Boric, knowing Gura and Nakor were listening. "If you see him again, let us know." "Master, there is something else." "What?" "I saw enough of him to know that he is of the true blood." Boric nodded. "Now that's not surprising. But that is not all. He gathered the front of his cloak before him, and as it shifted, I saw around his neck a glint of gold." Boric said, What does that mean?" It was Gura who answered, hissing angrily over his shoulder. "It means, you mush-brain maniac, that true blood is not just a true blood. He's a member of the royal house of Kesh. They're the only ones allowed to wear the golden torque. He's maybe only a very distant cousin of the Empress, but it still sends him gifts on his birthday. Just what the hell kind of mess have you gotten us into?" Boric fell silent as a large, sullen-serving woman approached in a raspy voice. He ordered 2 mugs of ale, and when she left, he half-turned to Gouda. "It's a very deep and twisted mess, my friend. As I said, it is politics." When the serving woman brought the ale to them and left, Gouda said, "My dear dead mother wanted me to go into an honourable trade like grave robbing. Would I listen? No. Be an assassin like your Uncle Gustav, she said. Would I pay heed? No. apprentice to a necromancer. Boric tried to appreciate the gallows humour, but found himself chewing over the implication. Who was trying to kill him in Erland, and why? It was obvious that this plot came down from the highest levels of the Empire, but from the royal family. He sighed and drank his bitter ale and tried to relax his mind as he waited for the call that the boat was ready to leave. Alright, we're going to break there for a second so we can run ads for our friends over on Twitch, and then we will be right back. Always, if your mother tells you to be an assassin, go be an assassin. Oh, mother knows best, as they said in that song in a Disney movie one time. Songbird, hello, good evening. Thank you kindly for the heart me, for the go popular, for the shard of hope, for the thumbs up, for the go live, for the community heart, for the love guard, for the cherry and for the oranges. Tips to the tavern keeper are always appreciated. Thank you kindly. That's right, Tangled. Mother knows best. That's correct. Adam, welcome back. I hope everything worked out well with your family. I know how frustrating family drama can be sometimes. A tiny sip to all of our friends. You have such a voice for Beowulf. I'd actually not heard that before. I do get requests to do all of the old Nordic poems, though. The lady has wanted me to do an abridged or an annotated version of the Havamal, as well as a bunch of people ask us to do read-throughs of the Poetic and Prose Edda. I'm always shocked to find that people don't know what the Poetic and Prose Edda are. And I don't mean people are not aware that they exist. I mean, like, there are a bunch of folk who I've talked to who think that the Poetic and Prose Edda are like religious texts, but they're not. The Poetic Edda is a collection of like poems and stories, and the Prose Edda was written by Snorri Sturluson. It's also called the Snorri Edda, the Snorri Edda, and it was a handbook written by him to teach people how to write Icelandic skaldic poetry. So those two books are not intended to be religious texts, because they don't talk about any of the Norse religion. They're traditional stories and poems and songs. And I'm always surprised that people don't know that. Thank you, Frost. I appreciate you. It is neat, yeah. And that's why if you read the Poetic Edda, there's so many contradictions between the Poetic Edda, which is older. It's an older collection of stories. And the Prose Edda, which is written by Snorri Sturluson, the Snorri Edda, really centralizes Odin in the story, whereas the older stories, it was much more scattered. You didn't have as much focus on Odin in the actual old stories. So Odin, in some versions of the story, wasn't even like the king of the gods or the king of the Aesir. And actually, you find that Tyr and Thor were much more popular amongst like farmers and soldiers than Odin was. So it's an interesting thing. They're more like guidelines than actual rules. I suppose to a degree. Like you have the Havamal, which is supposed to be like the wisdom of the High One. We don't know who wrote it, and it's said to be in Odin's voice, but we don't actually know that. It's nowhere explicitly stated that that's whose voice it is in. We don't get that from anything. A lot of the translators and historians believe that that's what it is. But otherwise, yeah. I thought of asking you to do Njal Saga, but it's such a dry read. The lady wants me to do updated language versions of the sagas so that they're more interesting to listen to. And we talked about doing novelized versions of Norse myth, both as my family has kept it, because my family keeps old stories that are very much our own. They're not terribly different, but they are different from the old stories that people generally tell. There are differences. But also just to novelize the Norse stories so that They're much easier to approach and much easier to understand. Similar to what Neil Gaiman did, but Neil Gaiman didn't exactly. Neil Gaiman's writing is good, but the representation of the story is not as good as it could have been. What are you drinking, Castle? Tonight I am drinking 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen in my tankard here, or H2O. Thank you for the drink, whoever cashed that in, by the way. And then I also have a little bit. I just ended my fast, so this is the first caffeine I've had in 3 days. Now, it's important to remember that the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda, there are different translations of them. And scholars generally do not agree on translation. Norse mythology is a mess. What the big problem with it is that you get a lot of people who read Norse mythology who kind of want to believe that there is a consensus. So they'll take a common reading and they'll say, okay, this is it. This is the truth. But the reality is that there's not a lot of really good scholarship around Old Norse as a language. And it's not to say there's none, it's just that there's not a lot. And then beyond that, nobody can really agree on what the Norse myths say. Like, there's very little consensus among scholars as to what is being said, especially in a lot of really prominent texts. Now, my family, we do an almost literal reading of what the language is saying. We don't try to interpret what the language is saying. We take pretty much as literal a meaning as possible from it. But scholars try to take contextual meaning in their translations. So if you read a scholarly translation, then you're going to end up with something that's entirely different than what you might get from just a standard reading. Not entirely, Meepers. I grew up in Ireland, but my family are from Norway, Faroes, and Southern Ireland. So I grew up with family, and my family are storytellers. So I come from a long tradition of storytellers. Quite literally, my family's tradition is we teach our children to tell stories and teach traditional crafts. And these are things we learn before we are allowed to be adults. So there's a huge part of that is a part of how our family passes on stories, passes on tradition. But I was raised around Nordics and around Irish folk. Which is why my accent is so strange. I lived in 30 different countries before I was 14 years old. And I spent a lot of time around family who were from Southern Ireland, primarily like the Wicklow, Cork and Limerick areas. And then I spent a year and a half with my uncle in Norway and an aunt and uncle who lived in the Faroes. And that's about as specific as I'm willing to be because we've had people try to track my family down, which is not okay. Most of my family are very private folk. They don't like social media. They don't like to be bothered. So they stay off of anything that is electronic in any way. Didn't stop people from trying to track them down and harass them, though. Pains in my arse, they were. I got in a ripe lot of trouble from my grandfather for that. Because of the way that I tell stories, I back when I first started telling stories here in the tavern, I would on occasion tell a version of the story that's been kept by my family. And as I said, the stories that my family keeps, they're different from traditional lore. I've never tried to pass these stories off as being the story. I've always just said, according to my grandfather and his family, who keep records going back a very long way. My grandfather has old books that have been verified by other academics and so on, that are of our family's tradition and old stories. I would on occasion tell a version of a story that my family keeps, and people would get upset about it. You get because people get very attached to these mythological stories. Again, because for some people, these mythological stories are a part of their religion, which is fine. You're allowed to believe whatever you like. But we would get people who would come and get very upset because of the story that I told that didn't line up with what they believed. So it was a misalignment between a religious sort of zealotry and people not liking what I said, more or less. And I've told people time and time again, like, you don't have to believe me. You don't have to take. You can take it as fiction if you want to. I don't particularly, I don't particularly care how people take it. I tell the story to pass it along because that's our tradition. We keep tales, we pass them along. But yeah, that was really the half and whole of it, and it was a bit of a thing for a while. We had folk that were trying to track down my grandfather. They tried to track down my aunt. We had somebody who tried to steal my aunt's information, who tried to hack into our Black Dragon Tavern accounts and get them shut down. We got mass reported at one point. There was a whole thing, and literally it was all just telling stories. So, it just kind of is what it is. So sorry, so many people decided they wanted to interfere with your family life. It's the danger of this job. Like, I understand my family's history got lost having to be refugee, which happens. And that's one of the reasons why I tell our family stories. Because whereas, I'll get two or three people who come in and they'll say, oh, this is dumb, this doesn't exist, this isn't real. I'll get dozens of other people come in and be like, oh my god, this is how my grandmother told the story. Or, oh my gosh, this is how my grandfather told the story. It's like, I've never heard anybody else tell the story this way. My grandfather or my uncle or somebody else told the story. That's so crazy. And that's why I do it, because it might be a link to somebody else, because we just collect the stories. We've been collecting them for centuries, for hundreds of years, and I just pass them along. Whether you want to believe that they're real or that they were ever told, that's entirely up to you. I tell the stories as best as I know them, and I present what I have, and that's it. That's really all it is. But yeah, people get upset. It's a part of doing this so publicly. There's not a whole lot that I can do to tell people what to think or believe, and I'm not going to. Well, good news and bad news. My headache is gone, but the old eye injury is actually. Matty, you are a wreck, my friend. You need to calm down. But yeah, and I don't worry about, because we've had people try to show up here at the tavern. I don't particularly worry about it because it's always Glock o'clock in the tavern. It's printed on the door. It is always Glock o'clock in the tavern. So anybody who wants to show up and try to hurt my family, they're gonna get a run for their money. But yeah, I didn't ask for my eye to hurt. Well, you don't have to ask if it's your fault though. What did you do? If it were anyone else, I might go, oh man, what happened? But when it's you, Matty, I have to ask, what did you do? What did you do that hurts your eye? Alright, our ads are done. We can get back into the story. Had some lag and had to jump off. That's alright. We haven't started back on story time yet, Clifford. I took pain meds, literally that's all I did. Well, see, there you go, you trusted doctors. That was the problem. Always a bad idea. I don't trust doctors for shite. And I'm not giving medical advice. I'm not in the best shape, as it were, so I definitely don't listen to me, but as far as I'm concerned, trusting doctors was your first mistake. I mean, look, I have never gone to a doctor and gotten better. That's all I'll say, alright? I've had two problems going on with me for the better part of 3 years. And I've been to the doctor 3 times. Each time I told them I had the problem, I needed it fixed. And he's like, yeah, we'll get somebody to look at it. Doesn't matter how many times I follow up, I then still have to go back another 10 months later and they don't do anything about it. Oh, I'm sorry, Bear, I missed it. What Bear was talking about above, I presume he mentioned this. We do have, the lady and I put together a small little handbook. It's not exhaustive by any means, but this little handbook is how my family looks at and celebrates these different festivals of the year. And in the back, now these are not old recipes. I had somebody ask me about this before. These are not old recipes. These are just some of the recipes from my grandfather and grandmother's cookbooks. So we do what are called dead man's books, where we pass along recipes. And what's in the back here are a bunch of recipes from my family cookbooks. So they're not traditional recipes by any means, but they are seasonal recipes. So that's what they were intended to be. They were meant to be recipes from my family to yours, collected by my family, and passed on to you guys. So yeah, that's what they were there for. But yes, this is available through the tavern shop. I think it's $5 for an ebook, $4 or $5 for an ebook, and I think $8 or $9 for the soft touch copy for it. I listened to the witch doctor, and he told me what to do. And I heard the witch doctor, and he told me that I was in love with you, Clifford, which is why I didn't believe that doctor either. Because you and I, we just met a little while ago, so that would be strange. Both of my last two surgeries left me worse off. Yeah, and, like, I don't want to poo-poo on modern medicine, because there are a lot of really wonderful things that come from modern medicine. But the reality is that I have seen more harm done at doctors than good in my life. That's all I'm saying. Well, and that's part of the family tradition, Bear, is that when we keep dead man's books, when a child gets their first dead man's book, they keep it and they write the variations of the recipes that they make themselves, so that they can pass those on to their children, and then their children can pass those along as well. If it wasn't for my doctor, I would have no form of support in life. See, and that's the thing, is that for some people, they have great luck with doctors. Every doctor I've ever known has been a bastard. Dead man's books, yes. So they're called a dead man's book because you record crafts and you record recipes in them. And that way, when you die, when you pass away, that can be handed down to your children, and they get to keep the recipes of the family and the important knowledge of the family when you've passed along. So throughout your whole life, you write in these books. Like my grandfather has like 80 dead man's books that have his recipes and his crafts and his business practices and all of that. That when he passes away, will get passed on to his sons. I mean, most of his sons already have most of his recipes and whatnot, but yeah. Dimples! Hello! Long time no see. I hope you and Digger are doing well. It's been a while. I hope you guys are all right. All right, let's get back into story time, guys. I'm sorry if I got into a bit of a that's epic. I like it. It's one of my favorite traditions of our family. I really enjoy it. Not luck with doctors, dislike with this. Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I have taken my dad's stew recipe and my mom's chili recipe and I've altered them to be my own. Yeah, and that's, in my mind, that's part of the tradition, is that the recipes grow and evolve, and you always have the old versions to go back to if you have them written down. Like, you can always go back to your grandmother's version of the recipe, or your great-grandmother's version of the recipe, or your great-grandfather's version of the recipe, if you have them written down. That is the core of the tradition, and I love it. I love it. Okay, let's continue. I should drink some water though. Getting a little dry over here. Oh, disluck with disabilities, which is also fair, Adam. I had a buddy who was a soldier. He got blown up in Afghanistan. And he lost one of his legs all the way up to the middle of his thigh, and he lost the other one at the knee. And he went on to become to get mechanical legs, and he became a runner. Um, and one of the things that he always said is that he's like, I'm only gonna be disabled if I decide that I'm disabled. He's like, I get to decide what is wrong with me. He's like, I'm gonna live as freely as I can, but I'm not gonna let anybody else tell me what I have to and have not to do. Santana, my friend, hello, hello. And I've always found that to be sort of a profound bit of wisdom, because some days I'll have days where I feel like it's all dread, you know, like it's all bad. There's nothing to look forward to, and I'll get real in my head about it, and then I'll remember friends like him who have overcome overwhelming odds, you know, and look back at my own life. I've spent almost 45 minutes of my life dead, and think, you know, I've overcome so much more than this thing that's bothering me right now. than this current issue, and there are other people who have had to overcome such greater things. So as long as I'm alive, I'm always going to make the best of whatever I have. And yeah, sometimes it's going to suck. Sometimes it's going to be terrible, and sometimes I'm going to look at other people and go, why do they have it so good when I have it so bad? And then I'm going to kick myself in the arse there for a second and go, you know what? That's just life. That's how it is. Sometimes other folk are going to have it better than you do, and there's nothing that you can do about that. That's just a roll of the dice. And the worst thing you can do for yourself is count other people's money, count other people's things, and then look at your own stuff and compare. The comparison is the thief of joy, in my opinion. Oh, we're all doing good, Santana. How are you guys doing? You were looking for a house. How's that going? Alright, let's get back into story time, friends. I waffled. I keep getting off into waffles. You guys gotta stop letting me get distracted. Hell yeah, Santana, that's good work. Congratulations. The call to board rang across the dockside, and Boric and his companions, as well as half a dozen others in the inn, rose, gathering together bundles and packages, and crowded through the door. Outside, Boric saw a company of Imperial guards waiting at the boarding ramp. Everyone who climbed onto the boat. These were the guards of the Inner Legion, the command given dominion over the great heart of Kesh. Each man wore a metal helm and a breastplate enameled with black. Short black kilts and black greaves and bracers gave them an intimidating appearance. The officer in charge of the company wore a helm topped with red horsehair crest, with another long red tail falling down his back. Boric said, "Quietly now, and act like you've got nothing to hide." He gave Sully a slight push, indicating that the boy should move on alone. Then waved Gura and Nakor ahead. Boric hung back, watching. The guards consulted a parchment from time to time, probably a detailed description of the three of them. They let Sully aboard without a second look. Gura was halted and asked a question. Whatever answer he gave seemed to satisfy them, for they waved him aboard. Then Boric's heart seemed to go cold as he saw Nakor turn and speak to a guard, pointing at him across the crowd. The guard said something and nodded, and then spoke to a second guard. Boric felt his mouth go dry as the three guards left the ramp and started walking purposely towards him. Deciding he might need room to break free, Boric moved towards the ramp as if nothing unusual was occurring. As he attempted to move out of the guard's way, one put a restraining hand on his arm. "Hold the moment, Bendrifi." It was not a request. Boric did his best to look irritated and disdainful, and then he glanced at where the officer stood on the ramp, observing the exchange. What? He said, sounding as surly as he could manage. We heard that the fight you almost started on the road from Katara. Maybe the caravan guards couldn't keep you in line, but you'll have 6 legionaries aboard with you. Any more trouble of that sort, and we'll pitch you in the river. Boric stared the man in the eye, made a slight snarling sound as he curved his lips, and then said one of the phrases Sully taught him. He yanked his arm out of the legionary's grip, but then 3 hands went to the hilts of swords. He held up his own, palmed outward, showing he intended no trouble. Turning his back on them, he attempted to maintain the pose of being touchy, rude hillman, and hoped his knees weren't looking as wobbly as they felt. He boarded the boat among the last to climb the ramp. He found himself seated opposite the wide craft from where his 3 companions sat. The 6 guardsmen were the last aboard, and they stationed themselves at the stern in a group, talking among themselves. Silently, Boric vowed that when they reached the city of Kesh, he would happily throttle the little Islani. A day and a half later, stopping 3 times along the way, they saw the skyline of the city of Kesh in view. Boric had recovered from the shock the Islani had handed him, and had fallen into a solemn brooding, a pose that took almost no effort on his part. The situation looked hopeless, and yet he must somehow force himself to continue, as his father had taught him and Erlon when they were still young, that the only thing they could guarantee in life was failure. To achieve success, you had to take risks. He had not truly understood what his father had been talking about. Erlon and he were both princes of the royal blood, and there was really nothing they couldn't do. But that was because of what they were. Now Boric understood much of his father had tried to explain before, and now the stakes were his own life, his brother's, and perhaps the life of the kingdom as well. As they approached the upper docks of Kesh, Boric saw companies of soldiers upon the boat landing. They might be taking passage across the Overn Deep or upriver, or they might be the normal guard for the city, or they might be screening passengers into the city. One more barrier between himself and his brother. As the boat began nosing into the dockside, Boric made his way back toward the legionaries. The guardsmen were making ready to exit, and the boat was tied off at the dockside. Boric moved to stand beside the man he had spoken to before boarding. The guardsman gave him a quick glance and then turned away. While the passengers were disembarked, Boric did nothing. But when he saw that they were being halted and inspected as they left, he knew he couldn't chance being singled out again. So it came time to leave. He turned to the guardsman and said again in his gruff voice, "I said a rude thing to you at Paha's, guardsman." The legionary's eyes narrowed and he said, "I assumed that, though I don't speak your babble." Boric mounted the gangplank in step with him and said, "I come to celebrate the Jubilee and to make devotion to the temple of Tithonarch." Boric had noticed that the man wore a good luck charm common to those soldiers who worship the war god with 2 faces. At such a holy time, I wish no bad blood with any soldier. The Islani cheated me at cards. That is why I was vexed. Will you take my hand and give me pardon for the offence I gave?" The guardsman said, "No man should enter the planner's battle's temple with an affront to a warrior on them." At the foot of the ramp, before the guards who were questioning the other passengers, the legionary and Boric gripped each other's right forearm and shook. "May your enemy never see your back," Boric said. "May you sing victory songs for many years, legionary." As if they were old friends saying goodbye, they shook again, and Boric turned and shouldered past 2 soldiers on the dock. One had observed the farewell and started to say something to Boric, but thought better of it and turned his attention to another man trying to push past. A strange little Islani from Xinglai. Better at waffles are fun. They'd have to be at this point. We're moving into a 1,600 square foot house. That's wonderful, Santana. Congratulations. Boric crossed the street, then paused, waiting to see what was occurring. Nakor and the guards seemed to be in some sort of an argument, and several other guardsmen turned to see that they were the problem was. Gura materialized beside Boric, seemingly having come to that spot by chance. A few moments later, Suli came to stand next to Boric. Nakor now had a circle of guards, and one pointed at the rucksack he always carried. Finally, as if relenting on some point, the Aslani handed the rucksack over to the first guard, who stuck his hand into the bag, and after a moment, the guard turned the bag upside down and then pulled it inside out. It was now empty. Gura gave a low whistle. How in the world did he do that? Boric said. Maybe all his magic is just a sleight of hand. Gura said, Well, madman, we're in the city of Kesh. Where to now? Glancing about, Boric said, Turn right and walk along the dockside. At the 3rd street, turn right again. Keep going until you find an inn. We'll meet at the first inn we encounter. Gura nodded and headed off. Suli, Boric whispered. Wait for Nakor and tell him. The boy said, Yes, master. And Boric left him and made his way leisurely after Gura. The inn was a seedy riverfront establishment with the grandiose name, the Emperor's Standard, and the jeweled crown. Boric had no idea what event in Keshian history had prompted this odd name, but there was nothing in the least bit imperial nor jewel-like about this establishment. It was like 100 other dark and smoky establishments in 100 cities in mid-Kemia. Languages and customs might differ, but the patrons were all cut from the same cloth. Bandits, thieves, cutthroats of all stripe, gamblers, whores, and drunkards. Boric felt at home for the first time since entering Kesh. Glancing around, he saw that the usual suspects... He saw the usual respect for privacy prevailed here, as in other inns he and Erlon used to frequent in the kingdom. Casually, looking down at his mug, he said, We can assume that at least one of these customers is either Imperial agent or an informer. Guru removed his helm, scratched his scalp, itching from perspiration, and said, That's a safe bet. We won't stay here, said Boric. That's a relief, said Guru. Oh, I wouldn't mind a drink before we seek lodgings. Boric agreed, and the big man caught the attention of the serving boy, who returned with 4 chilled ales. Boric sipped his and said, I'm surprised it's chilled. Gura stretched. If you bother to glance north next time you're outside, madman, you'll notice a tiny range of mountains called the Spires of Light. And they're called such because their highest peaks are constantly coated in ice, which, when conditions are right, reflect the sunlight with an impressive effect. There's a thriving business in ice in this city. The Guild of Ice Cutters is among the richest guilds in Kesh. You learn something new every day, said Boric. Nakor said, I don't like it. Ale should be warm. This makes my head hurt. Boric laughed, and Gura said, Well then, we're in Kesh. How do we reach those friends of yours? Boric lowered his voice. Aye. Gura's eyes narrowed. What now? I know where they are. I'm just not sure how to get there. Gura's eyes became angry slits. Where? They're in the palace. God's teeth! Gura exploded, and several of the inn's patrons turned for a moment to see what caused the outburst. Lowering his voice to a whisper, but not losing the angry tone, he said, You're joking, aren't you? Please say that you're joking. Boric shook his head. Gura stood up and put his long dirk in his belt and picked up his helm. Where are you going? Asked Boric. Anywhere but where you're going, madman. Boric said, You gave your word. Looking down, Guru said, I said I'd get you to Cache. You're in Cache. He didn't say a thing about the palace. Pointing an accusatory finger at Boric, he said, You owe me 5,000 AQ, and I'll never see a tenth of one coin of it. Boric said, You'll get it. You have my word. But I have to find my friends. And the palace, hissed Guru. Sit down. People are watching. Guru said, Let them watch. I'm going to be on the first boat to Kimri I can find. I'll get to Hans Sule and take a ship to the Eastern Kingdoms. I'll be sitting caravan watch for some foreign land for the rest of my life. But I'll be alive, which is more than I can say for you if you try to get into the palace. Boric smiled. I know a trick or two. What will it take to keep you with us? Guru couldn't believe Boric was serious. After a moment, he said, Double what you promised. 10,000 EQ. Boric said, Done. Ha! Snapped Guru. Easy enough to promise anything when we're all going to be dead in a day or two. Turning to Suli, Boric said, We need to get in touch with certain people. Whispering, Boric said, Suli blinked uncomprehendingly. Master? Whispering, Boric said, The Thieves' Guild, the Mockers, the Ragged Brotherhood, or whatever they're called in this city. Suli nodded as if he understood, but his expression showed that he didn't have a hint as to what Boric wanted. Master? Boric said, What sort of street beggar are you? Suli shrugged. One from a city without much of a group. Without such a group, master. Boric shook his head. Look, get out there and find the nearest market. Find a beggar. You'll be able to do that, won't you? Suli nodded. Just drop a coin in his hand and say there's a traveller who needs to speak to someone on a matter of urgency. And it's a matter worth the time of the people who get things done in the city. Understand? I think so, master. If the beggar asks any more questions, just say this. Boric sought to remember some of the old stories James had told him about his own boyhood, with the thieves in Crondor, and after a long moment he added, One in this town who wishes not to cause difficulty by being here, but who wishes to make arrangements so that all may benefit. Can you do that? Suli repeated his instructions, and when Boric was satisfied he had them correctly, he sent the boy off. They drank in relative silence, until Boric saw that Nakor reached into his rucksack to pull out some cheese and bread. Looking pointedly at the Islani, Boric said, Hey, wait a minute. When the guard examined your bag, it was empty. That's right, said Nakor, his white teeth looking as if they didn't quite fit his face. How'd you do that? Asked Gouda. It's a trick, answered the laughing little man, as if that explained everything. Nakor seems like one of those people who would be very interesting to be around, but also incredibly frustrating. Yeah, Tyson, there's a kitchen, there's a Castle's Kitchen tab over in the guild. So you can post any recipes you have over there. I can't type as fast as you could speak, can't I? It was fair enough. Fair enough. I speak fast even amongst my own people. Where was I? At sundown, Suli returned. He sat down next to Boric and said, Master, it took a while. But at last I did find such a one as you required. I gave him a coin and said as I was instructed. That one asked many questions, but I only repeated what you said, and refused more. He bid me wait for him and vanished. With much fear I waited, but when you returned as well, he said that those you wish to speak with will meet us at a named time and place. When and where? Asked Gura. Boric and Suli said. To Boric, Suli said, the time is the second ringing of the watch bell after sundown. The place is but a short walk from here. I know it because he made me repeat the direction several times. But we must go to the market and find it from there, for I would not tell this beggar where we were staying. Good, said Boric. We've been here too long as it is. Let's go. They rose and left, following Suli to the nearest market square. Boric was again astonished at the press of humanity around him, and the diversity of it. If he felt foolish, no one took note of his impersonation of a Bendrifi. The array of costumes and lack thereof he saw in Farafra was even more varied in the Empire's capital. The blackest skin Boric had ever seen gleamed in the late afternoon sun as lion hunters of the grassy plains walked by, and yet there were enough fair-skinned people to show that those who once lived in the kingdom had come to Kesh over the years. Many had the narrow eyes and yellowish skin that Nakor possessed, but their dress was in a different fashion than the Islani. Some wearing silk jackets and knee breeches, others wearing armour, and all others in simple monk's robes. Women in all states of dress, from the most modest to almost naked, passed by, and few took notice, unless the woman was unusually striking. A pair of Ashunte plainsmen sauntered by, each leading a pair of women by chains. The women were nude and walking with eyes downcast. A company of brawny-looking men with red and blonde hair, wearing furs and armour despite the heat, passed them by, and insults were exchanged. Boric turned to Gura and said, What was that? Brijaners, seamen from Brijan, and the towns along the shore below the Grimstone Mountains. They are raiders and traders who ply for the great sea from Kesh to the eastern kingdoms in their longships, and even across the endless sea, the stories claim. They are proud, violent men, and they worship the spirits of their dead mothers. All the Brijaner women are seers and priestesses, and the men believe their ghosts come to guide their ships, and therefore hold all women sacred. The Ashunti treat women worse than dogs, and if it wasn't for the Empress's peace sail being in the city, they'd be trying to kill one another on sight. Boric said, Wonderful. Are there many such feuds in Kesh? Gura said, No more than usual. About 100 such, give or take a few, on any given festival. That's why the palace guards and the Inner Legion are here in strength. The Legion has dominion over the Inner Empire, all that surrounds Overn. Inside the ring of the mountains formed by the Mother of Waters, spires of light, guardians and grimstones. Outside of that, local lords run things. Only on the imperial highways and those sorts of festivals is peace enforced. Other times, he made a wipe-clean motion with his hand. One side or the other is dogmeat. Kesh was a wonder to Boric. The throng of streets was both familiar and alien. So much of what a city was unfamiliar to him, but this city was overlaid with ages of alien culture. When they entered the market, Boric said, This is pretty impressive. Gura snorted, This is a local market, madman. The big one is across from the amphitheatre. That's where most travellers will go. Boric shook his head, glancing around. He said to Suli, When should we leave? We have a while, master. As he spoke, a dozen chimes and gongs sounded in the city ring as the sun vanished over the horizon. The second bell. So it will be an hour. Well then, let's find something to eat. They agreed on that and set off to search the street vendors whose wares weren't too costly. As the second bell of night sounded, they entered the alley. This way, master, said Sully, keeping his voice low. Despite the early hour of the night, the alley was deserted. The narrow corridor was cluttered with trash and garbage, and the stench was overwhelming. Trying to keep the greasy meat and flatbread he had eaten down, Boric said, "A friend once told me that thieves will often put garbage in." Stepping on what appeared to be a dead dog, Boric continued, "Other things along their private escape routes to discourage casual inspection." At the end of the alley was a door, wooden with a metal lock plate, and Boric tried it and found it locked. Then from behind, a voice said, "Good evening." Boric and Gura turned and pushed Sully and Nakor behind. A half-dozen armed men were approaching them down the alley. Gura hissed, "I have a very bad feeling, madman." Boric said, "Good evening. Are you the one I arranged to meet?" "That depends," answered the leader, a thin man with a grin too big for his face. His cheeks were heavily pockmarked, to the point of the disfigurement being apparent in the dim light in the alley. The others behind him were the shadowy silhouettes. "Boo! Stop it!" "Dude? Oh. Hey! Stop it. Stop it. Stare at me while you're doing that. You're going to get your butt beat. I'll toss you in the toilet, cat. And then flush." "Bobby, hello! I'm getting ready for bed. I figured I would listen to counsel and go to sleep." "Well, hello. I'm glad you dropped in. It's always lovely to see you." "What is your proposal?" "I need entrance into the palace." Several men laughed. "That is easy," said the leader. "Get arrested, and they will take you before the High Tribunal. Assuming you break the imperial law, murder the guard. That always works." "I need to get in on scene." "Impossible. Besides, why should we help? You may be imperial agents for all we know." "You do not speak like a Bendrifi. Despite your dress, the city has been crawling with agents looking for someone who we don't know. So you may be him, in any event," he said, drawing a long sword. "You have about 10 seconds to explain why we shouldn't just kill you, and take your gold now." As he and Gura drew their swords, Boric said, "For one thing, I can promise you 1,000 gold IQ if you tell us of an entrance. Twice that if you take us there." The leader motioned with his blade, and his companions spread out, forming a wall of swords across the alley. And I bring greetings from the upright man of Krondor." The leader paused for a moment, and then said, "Impressive." Boric let out a breath of tension. Then the leader of thieves said, "Very impressive, for the upright man has not been seen in 7 years. For the upright man has been 7 years dead in Krondor, and the mockers are now ruled by the virtuous man. Your introduction is less than timely, spy." To his men he said, "Kill them." The alley was too narrow to allow Gura to draw his bastard sword, so he pulled both ducks as Boric unsheathed his rapier, and Sully his short sword, forming a 3-man front. Boric took a second to say to Nakor, "Can you open that lock?" "Yes," Lonnie said. "It will take but a moment," and the attackers were full upon them. Boric's sword took the first man in the throat, and Gura was forced to use his 2 ducks to parry the attacks of the longer sword. Sully, who had never used a sword before, but he flailed about well enough with conviction that the man opposite him was reluctant to try and get past the blurring weapon. The attackers fell back a step. At the death of one of their number, they were reluctant to rush Boric's sword point again. The cluttered alley gave no one an advantage save time. The attackers fell. The attackers could hang back and let Borik's party tire, then take them, for they had no place else to go. So the thieves were content to faint and withdraw, faint and withdraw. Nakor rummaged through his rucksack and found what he was looking for. Borik glanced over his shoulder for an instant to see what the Islani pry a lid off of a flat jaw. What? He began. Then he was forced to pay the price for his inattention as a broadsword almost took off his left arm. He dodged and thrust, and the second attacker was out of the fight, this one with a ragged cut down his right arm. Nakor poured a small pile of white powder from his left hand and put the lid back on the jaw. Kneeling before the lock, the diminutive man blew on the powder. Rather than scattering randomly, the powder in his left hand in a thin line, straight to the keyhole on the lock plate. As the powder passed through the lock, a series of audible clicks could be heard. Nakor stood up with a satisfied smile, put away his jar, and opened the door. "We can go now," he calmly announced. Instantly, Gura shoved him unceremoniously through the door, followed after as Borik launched a fury of blows that drove back the thieves, allowing Suli to bolt through the door after the mercenary. Then Borik was through, and Gura slammed the door behind him. Nakor held out a large, ornate chair, which Borik jammed against the door handle, barring the door for a moment. Borik turned and was suddenly aware of two facts. The first was of a nearly nude girl regarding him with eyes years older than the rest of her. From where she sat outside a door, waiting the bidding of whoever was on the inside that door. The second was the sweet smoke that hung in the air, unmistakable one smelled. It was opium, cut with other smells, jewel weed and hashish, and sweet-smelling oils, that had broken into the back of a joy house. As Borik expected, the moment after they had broken in, three large men, the establishment's resident bruisers, each armed with clubs in hand and knives, and swords in their belt, materialized in the hall. "What passes here, scum?" shouted the first, his eyes wide in anticipation of a little free bloodletting. Borik was instantly convinced that whatever he said, the man's intent was bloody. Borik pushed himself past Gura, shoving the mercenary's dirk point down with a clear message not to start trouble. Glancing over his shoulder, Borik said, "Said he watched trying to break in that door." He slid past the first man just as the thieves outside obliged by hitting the door, causing the chair to move a foot. "Those thieving bastards," said the first bruiser, "were paid up this month." Borik gave the man a friendly shove towards the door, saying, "The greedy scum are trying to shake you down for more." As the second bruiser sought to hold on to Borik, the prince grabbed the man's elbow and turned him after the first. "There's 10 of them out there, armed. They claim there's a Jubilee surcharge you haven't paid." By now, several clients of the establishment were opening doors and peeking into the holes to see what was happening. At the sight of armed men, several doors were slammed, and then one girl screamed and the panic was on. The third bruiser said, "Wait a minute, you," to Borik, who took a swipe with his club. Borik barely got his left arm up in time and took the blow on his left bracer, but still the shock numbed his arm to the elbow. Thinking of nothing else to do, the prince shouted, "Raid!" at the top of his lungs, and every door in the hall flew open. The third bruiser tried to take another swipe at Borik, but Gura struck him behind the ear with the hilt of his dirk, stunning the man. Borik shoved the third bruiser hard into the fat merchant, attempting to leave with his clothes in hand, shouting at the merchant, "It's the girl's father! She's come to kill you, man!" The merchant's eyes widened in horror, and he dashed through the outside door, still nude, holding his robes in a bundle. A sleepy-looking woman in her early 40s stood at the door saying, "My father." At that moment, Sully shouted, "City watch!" as loud as he could, and the rear door flew open and the thieves barged in, collided with naked girls and boys, drugged men, and two very angry bruisers. The commotion in the hall was redoubled with another pair of large men appeared at the top of the hall, demanding to know what was going on, and Boric shouted, "Religious fanatics, trying to free your slave girls and boys. Your men are being attacked back there, help them." Somehow, Gura and Sully and Nakor extricated themselves from the confusion in the hall and bolted for the entry of the building. The nude merchant running down the street had piqued the curiosity of the city watch. The two armed guards of the peace were standing before the door as Boric pulled it open. Without hesitation, he said, "Oh, sirs, it's horrible. The House of Slaves is revolting and are killing customers. They're crazed on drugs and their strength is superhuman. Please, you must send for help." One of the guards pulled his sword and dashed inside, while the other took a whistle and blew it. Within seconds, the shrill whistle was sounding. 10 more city guardsmen were hurrying to the right and dashing through the door. 2 blocks away, a dark end, Boric and his companions sat at a table. Gura took off his helm, and it almost bounced off the table so hard did he put it down, and pointing his finger at Boric, he said, "The only reason I don't knock your head off now is that we'd certainly get arrested." "Why do you keep wanting to hit me?" said Boric. "'Cause you're doing stupid things which threaten to get me killed, madman," Nakor said. "That was fun." Gura and Boric stared at him in astonishment. "Fun?" said Gura. "Most excitement I've had in years," said the grinning man. Sully looked as if he was close to exhaustion. "Master, what do we do now?" Boric thought for a moment, shook his head and said, "I don't know." And so ends chapter 14 of Prince of the Blood. And pretty much exactly on the 2.5 hour mark. That was a long chapter. The next chapter is not quite as long. Next chapter is 15 pages. Not quite as long. Dang, what it is. Yeah, I know. It was a hell of a thing. They see, that's what I mean. Like, Erlon's story is not particularly interesting in this book. However, Boric's story is very interesting. I've liked Boric's story quite a bit. Between arguing about something I believe is basic modesty to a rough, busy day at work, I am tired. Jacob, I'm very glad that you've made it in, and I appreciate the end of the world reference there. Just got off work, glad I didn't miss the entire story time. I'm glad you didn't miss it either. Hello, my name is Laknuda. Well, welcome in, Laknuda. Welcome, glad to have you. Where's my popcorn? Dang, that ending. Does Boric know how to do anything but find trouble? It doesn't seem so. It seems like his primary skill is finding trouble and then multiplying it. I can't say it was terribly different from myself as a young man. I seemed to find trouble wherever I went. That's all right, Frost. I think we're going to end here for the night, so I appreciate you, brother. Have yourself a wonderful night. Head off to bed. I think that that's a wonderful place to end. We'll pick up next week. I mean, we really only have, let's see. We've got roughly 93. We've only got 60 pages left. So we've only really got maybe 2 more weeks in this book. Send fires and missiles! Yes. The End of the World animation is probably one of the greatest pieces of internet history that there is. Oh yeah, E-Bomb's World was legendary. I have such an in-depth memory of old internet history. It's crazy. I was so entrenched in keeping stories by the time I was a young adult. By the time I was in my late teens and I'd left home, that when I started getting involved in internet history, I was deep in it. Like, I remember all of the stories of Killfrog. I remember Red versus Blue. I remember the new Red Green show, which I believe was Canadian. You know, the original Rooster Teeth. Just so many things. Every once in a while, I will seriously say, "Why are you running with a knife?" And everyone knows you run faster with a knife. I don't think you've done Got No Beard for a while. We haven't done Got No Beard for a while. That's true. We can do Got No Beard. We're gonna have to let ads run though, unless we can get our songs done in 4 minutes. Yeah, Kaboo. I did my whole Lego video. My first one was a joke built around Red versus Blue. And there'll be a lot of people in here who are too old to know what Red versus Blue and too young to know what Red versus Blue is. Salad fingers, you've got the Kiwi animation, you've got, I think everybody knows Charlie the Unicorn, but you also had llamas with hats, right? The Ultimate Showdown of Ultimate Destiny, yeah, I've showed that to the boy. Old Godzilla was hopping around Tokyo City like a big playground. Yeah. Yep. Oh, man. 1995 to 2005 was peak internet. It'll never be better than that. Everything that came after that was terrible. And even as much as I don't like things like Salad Fingers, I think Salad Fingers is disturbing as all hell. It's still a classic part of internet culture. What is it? You told me you had the first page done. When you said the first one, you meant the first question? I'm not... You know that this is a no. Go back and finish that. Wait. You have had... No.
Finish my sentence.
You have had easily 5 hours. No. Okay, here, let me ask them. No, give it to me. Oh, no.
Comprehension of it.
Okay.
In order to make up for this,
I
I reread chapter 3 to
Yes.
get better comprehension of it,
Yes.
since my comprehension
That's-
of it
that-
was not great.
That's good. That's what you need to do.
So I made up for that.
Okay.
So
That's not a 5-hour activity. What have you been doing? That's not 5 hours. You covered 35 minutes, maybe. How long was the chapter?
20 pages long.
Okay. I just did 20 pages live while talking to people and running ads every hour. I just did 26 pages, sir. What were you doing? And that was in 2.5 hours.
I sat around.
Yeah, that's what I assume happened.
I sat around and relaxed.
Look. You know that that's not enough. I don't know why you came out here and presented it like... No, it can't.
Can it?
No, it cannot. Everybody is literally cracking up right now because no, it cannot be enough.
You don't know if that's the reason.
That is the reason.
They might be.
You said the first one, and I assumed the first page, not just the first question.
Look, I think.
I'm sure that the answer you did write down is very good. But the
answer for number 2.
I think that's a good start,
It's a great.
and it's well written. Your handwriting looks neat.
It's a great start, though.
Yes.
But
You absolutely know that your mom is not gonna go,
It's.
yeah, that's enough. She's gonna be very upset.
It's fine.
It does look
3
fine.
days to finish this. It's not.
You're supposed to be doing one every day. I don't know why you keep saying 3 days to finish it. You're supposed to be doing one every day.
It's a week.
No, she said you're supposed to be reading one chapter every day throughout the week, is what she said.
But not writing these down.
Yes,
I do
that's a
read the
chapter study
I
guide.
do read the chapter in the day.
You are a
And I
ludicrous
write this
human
down
being.
throughout the week.
No, you are a ludicrous human being. You stop this.
I'm a
Stop.
normal.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
You are not.
You want to know what else a normal human being does?
What?
Get some food in their body and place.
You could have eaten some cereal earlier. I told you I was going to make you food when I was done.
But you missed the second thing. A normal human being also plays Power Walking Simulator.
I am not going to say ever, you know what, go play Power Washing Simulator instead of doing your homework.
But this
There's no world where you're going to convince me that Power Washing Simulator is more important than finishing that.
it's good. This is
It is, but it's not done.
it's not, well, it's not done, but it's good for now.
Okay, here's what I'll do. You can decide whether you risk it. If your mom comes home and is not happy with that amount being done, no video games till Monday.
Next Monday.
Yes.
Okay.
Because Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So weekend, no games.
And you can't tell her anything.
I won't say anything. You just present it to your mom and say, Mom, is this enough for today?
What
That's
do
all
we-
you have
what
to
do
say.
we comply is upset me.
If she is anything but thrilled with the work you've done, that's upset.
What if she comes home grumpy? 'cause
She
the
won't.
work was done?
She won't
But
come home
how do
grumpy.
you know that?
Because I'll have coffee and bread waiting for her.
Do we still have banana bread?
We do.
I'd like some banana.
You can have some as soon as I'm done.
I'll have some banana bread. Alright, yeah. Okay.
All right. Go do what you're going to do. Do you want me to turn your internet back on, I presume?
Do what you do. It's not the game. If it's not on, so yeah.
All right.
Also, hello everybody. I'm a very responsible boy at does all these good things. This one little
No, okay, wait, hang on. I need to bring it to me.
I don't think I can do that.
No, bring it here because
Okay.
because Jacob Helzer over on the Facebook portal just said, reminds me of that episode where SpongeBob spent 2 hours writing the word the. So fancy. Give it to me. I feel like we're witnesses. What kind of coffee? Because coffee and bread says me. It's I fresh grind her. Well, I haven't been able to fresh grind, but I fresh make her.
This is the paper that I had in my hands, but I'm pretty sure this is the one you used.
Well, but either one is fine because on that one, your second question also just had the word "the" written on it. This was what he tried to turn in the other day with just this on it, Jacob. And then today, he's got one.
No.
He's got one answered question, and then the second question
He's lying.
just has the word "the" on it.
He's lying.
So, you are literally SpongeBob.
First, that on the paper right there.
Put those
That-
back in your folder.
there's nothing was missing at all, even a little bit.
It is hilarious how accurate. It's hilarious how accurate that was. This is all being documented. Yes, it's forever, really. Oh my gosh. Castle, feel free to unpublish that. Wait, unpublish what? What happened? Oh, clipped and saved. No, you're fine. Yeah, leave it clipped. That's that's probably one of the funnier moments we've had. You know, I used to do featured clips when people would clip funny stuff during Storytime. If you guys want to go back to doing that, I'll start featuring funny clips again. If you guys want to do that. I just haven't thought about it in a long time. Homework deal, yeah. Everett SquarePants. Yeah, it's accurate. When he was a little kid, he used to run around screaming "Leedle Leedle Lee" everywhere too. So
Did not. That's false.
I'm really glad you didn't mute this one. I didn't realize I didn't, but it is funny. I didn't realize until I saw you guys commentating on it that you got people face palming.
No, they're completely.
There was a computer pop, but I wanted to catch the deal. That is. There was a funnier pop, but I wanted to catch the deal. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Okay, all right, let's sing a couple songs and then I'll send you guys off. Good lord. Got No Beard and Wellerman, I think, were the two requests, so let's go ahead and do those. We'll do Got No Beard and Wellerman. I love how Kid Logic doesn't really leave until you're like in your 20s. Yeah, if Everett manages to get rid of his Kid Logic by his 20s, I will be thrilled. That was very funny. No, 5 hours, Matty. 5 hours. He's been awake and working on that for 5 hours. And the thing is, I want you guys to know, if he sits down and he just does those, he will get them done in half an hour to an hour at the most. Like, he can finish those in like an hour. He can finish reading his chapter and writing out his chapter analyses and summaries. He can do that in an hour. But he procrastinates and just sits there and doesn't do it. Pure gold. The whole situation is meme. Yeah, it really is. Would Ultimate Showdown count as a shanty? It would not. It would not. And since I've actively denied many people trying to get me to sing the Poke Rap, I think we'll have to say that no Ultimate Showdown. And actually, you know what? I think Ultimate Showdown would probably get me in trouble. I think there are some words in Ultimate Showdown that would get me in trouble. Una, your son nearly killed me with humor today on stream. All right, let's get singing, my friends. Okay. Got No Beard. Ugh. G can do that too, 10-year-old level, of course. Like, when he doesn't want to do it, it's 0 done, but then when he sits and does it, he can fly through a week's within an hour or two. And that's the thing, is like, I just tell him, I'm like, look, there are some of the things that takes him a little bit because he's not practicing them. Like, his handwriting is sloppy because he refuses to practice his handwriting. But just in a week of practicing his handwriting has gotten better. So I keep telling him, I'm like, just practice the things that you don't like so you can get them done quickly, and then just do them when you're supposed to. Yeah, probably that, and then the Chuck Norris part would probably get us in trouble. Whole lot of things we have to watch out for. You got no beard, said the bearded man. Both of them, all of them say. Okay, let me see if I can remember the tune to this one. It's been a bit. Yeah, apart from the fact that he is such a nerd, he's a typical teenager in a lot of ways. All right, we're doing "Got No Beard" by the Longest Johns. I once met a man who said he was a fan. He wanted to sing in my shanty band. But the bottom of his face looked weird, so weird. There was skin on his chin that I loathed and feared. From his crown to his ear he was most sincere, but you can't sing the shanties if you've got no beard. Got no beard, you got no beard. You can't sing the shanties if you've got no beard. Got no beard, got no beard. You can't sing the shanties if you've got no beard. I once met a girl who heard sea songs. She came to the show and she sang along. But the timing of the shout was so slow. She was graced with a face like a morning glow, but a holler was a blow. From a very distant row said, you can't sing the shanties if you can't shout ho! You can't shout ho! You can't shout ho! Can't sing the shanties if you can't shout ho! You can't shout ho! You can't shout ho! Can't sing the shanties if you can't shout ho! And you've got no beard. I once met a man on a weird machine, had wheels and a bell, but no mast to be seen. He was shouting from a pad of notes, no notes, and his wheels got caught in his overcoat. And he fell from the pier, clawing at his throat. You can't sing the shanties if you don't own a boat. Don't own a boat, you don't own a boat. You can't sing the shanties if you don't own a boat. Don't own a boat, you don't own a boat. You can't sing the shanties if you don't own a boat. And you can't shout, ho, and you got no beard. I once met a bloke on a tavern floor. He'd had 10 beers, but I'd had 10 more. And his piggy little face was pink, so pink. He tried to shout words, but they were all out of sync. With a voice so bad it'll make you think that you can't sing the shanties if you can't hold your drink. Can't hold your drink, can't hold your drink. Can't sing the shanties if you can't hold your drink. Can't hold a drink, can't hold a drink. You can't sing the shanties if you can't hold a drink, and you don't own a boat, and you can't shout ho, and you've got no beard. I once met a sailor, oh big and broad, with an eye-patch parrot and a long-curved sword. He had a chest like a powder keg, big chest, but he had both shoes, and he smelled like eggs. I expect he'd look better with a wooden peg, 'cause you can't sing the shanty if you got 2 legs. Got 2 legs, you got 2 legs. You can't sing the shanties if you've got 2 legs. Got 2 legs, you've got 2 legs. You can't sing the shanties if you've got 2 legs, and you can't hold your drink, and you don't own a boat, and you can't shout ho, and you've got no beard. Time for some windrows. I mean, look, I will blow some diggy hole out of the water. Well, Anna's got no beard, and Dave, he has a bike. Robbie's father-in-law has boats, but he won't sing on the mic, and JD can't shout ho, 'cause his wife takes much offence. And Andy's got 2 beautiful hairy legs, and there's no reason good enough not to join us. So sing along with the very last chorus. 2, 3, 4. Got no beard, you've got no beard. You can't sing the shanties if you've got no beard. Got no beard, you've got no beard. You can't sing the shanties if you've got no beard. Got no beard, you've got no beard. You can't sing the shanties if you've got no beard. Got no beard, you've got no beard. You can't sing the shanties if you've got no beard, and you've got 2 legs, and you can't hold a drink, and you don't own a boat, and you can't shout ho, and you've got no beard. Oh, that one's like Rattling Bog. It just where it. It's so much, so vast. Apparently, none of us can sing shanties. I mean, I've got a beard, but I got both my legs. I don't own a boat. I can't hold my. Well, I suppose I can hold my drink. I don't know. I can't shout ho, for sure. People get offended. Yeah, I miss most of the things. Jaeger, hello, my friend. Good to see you. And we're gonna do Wellerman next. If I had the voice for Windrose, I would do Windrose. But it is not in my repertoire, as the French would say. Just saying goodnight. Well, we're saying goodnight as well, so good night, my friend. Always lovely to see you, brother. I hope that you had a good day. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week, and that in all things you conquer, my friend. All right, well, man. There once was a ship that put to sea, and the name of that ship was the Billy O.T. Oh, winds blew up her bow, dip down, oh, blow, my bully boys, blow. Ha! Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. She'd not been 2 weeks from shore when down on her a right whale bore. Captain called all hands and swore he'd take that whale in tow. Ha! Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Oh, Windrose the game. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? Isn't it? What is that dwarf band? Isn't there a dwarf band called Windrose? Am I misremembering that? But yes, the Windrose is the pirate game, or it's a pirate game, isn't it? Something like that. The lady plays all sorts of games like that. I don't have as much time to play as she does, but she'll usually play stuff like that. Ah, before, oh. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Before the boat had hit the water, the whale's tail came up and caught her. All hands to the side harpooned and fought her. Oh, when she dived down low, ha! Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. No line was cut, no whale was freed, the captain's mind was naught of greed, but he belonged to the whaleman's creed. She took that ship in tow, ha! Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. For 40 days or even more, the line went slack and tight once more. All boats were lost, there were only 4, but still that whale did go. Ha! Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. As far as I've heard, the fight's still on, the line's not cut and the whale's not gone. The wellerman makes his irregular call to encourage the captain, crew, and all. Ha! Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Did you ever play RuneScape way back in the day? Way back in the day. Yes, there is a band named Windrose, and they diggy holes. I knew it. I knew I wasn't crazy. There's another one they made of Rattling Ball, Got No Beard, the Court of King Caractacus, titled Proper Cup of Tea by Seamus Kennedy. Oh, I think Proper Cup of Tea I'm vaguely familiar with, Bear. I've already said how much I love it here. Well, it's not to love, right? Oh, got the nuts. So I've got the pieces. Good night, Jody. I appreciate you so much. Rest well. I hope you have a wonderful evening. And my friends, I believe that this is where we are going to end for the night. It has been a wonderful evening. I am tuckered out. It is 10:30. I think it is well past our time to depart. But I want to tell you all, I appreciate everyone for being here. I am so glad of the conversation this evening. It was a wonderful night. We will be raiding to share the love over on the Twitch portal, but for everybody else, this is where we must part. And while it is such sweet sorrow to part, we will once again gather the next time that you all seek a story. So until then, my friends, I will bid you all stay bloodthirsty, and I will see you next time. Good night, my friends, and rest well.
Across the foam where the grey sea dies, I see the gold in your mortal eyes. Leave the iron sheen, leave the rust, leave the men who turn to dust.
I see the light, I see the shore, but my heart is tied to the threshing floor. How can I ride where the shadows go? all I know.
Tiananong is calling.
Beyond the mist where the sea is new,
Leave the world of the gray and the falling.
Ashim,
Harun, I am calling you. 10,000 winters in a single breath. The land of youth, the end of death. Time is a cage, time is a lie. Come to the land where we never die.
I took the saddle, I left the clay, but the ghost of home wouldn't fade away. 300 years passed like a sigh, while I watched the golden birds fly by.
Ashim, my love, stay on the horse.
I must see the hills, I must find my sword.
If you touch the ground, the years will strike.
The world is changed, it is nothing alike. I touch the ground and the ground turned gray. My brothers are bones, they have blown away. My skin is a shroud, my heart is lead. I wake among the ancient dead.
The veil is thin, the light is long. We are the pulse, we are the song. You chose the shore, you left the tide. The mist has closed on the mortal